Parents' Bill of Rights passed this week in the state Senate thanks to a major push from Republicans. Reporters say the bill would give parents more control over what schools and doctors can provide without permission, but opponents say it's a political manifesto and diminishes children's rights. David, it's no guarantee that the House will even having this get into committee, so this might just be another Republican bill from the Senate into the House. But it brings up some other issues, whether it be social issues about what doctors can give to kids without parents being notified, and then also in this era of vaccinations and things like that, the whole Parents' Bill of Rights, I think, brings up a lot of different issues for people. What do you think? What's your prognostication for this bill?
Well, despite one information being put out by some of the professional trolls on the internet, this doesn't change the law about vaccinations one way or the other. The principle that children are that parents have a fundamental constitutional right to direct their children's upbringing, which the government can't take away, that the children are part of the family, not part of the government, is something very well established in our constitutional law. It goes back at least to the Meyer versus Nebraska case in 1921, reaffirmed in cases such as the Yoder case from Wisconsin in the early 1970s, where the very liberal court there said that certainly parents, that you can't force Amish children to go to high school because they have an alternative path for themselves, and the government can't make everybody into a one-size-fits-all. On this particular bill, I think there are some things that no reasonable person could object to. For example, saying that schools have to inform parents about things that are already in the law, about opting out of seeing a movie in class, or what the law rules about vaccination are. That's just more transparency in telling people. On the other hand, I think there's some things that go too far. For example, it says when a parent asks about one of these topics, the school has to answer within 2 business days. That would be reasonable in most situations, but what if you got the parent who keeps on emailing you every 15 minutes, and you may have a principal who's doing nothing but responding to this parent's email. So I think the best approach would be if it goes over to the House, and then the House, in a bipartisan way, culls some of the things from this that they might be worried about, and keeps the things which everyone ought to support, and sends back to the Senate a narrower bill. And that would be a good example of bipartisan cooperation, moderating things, getting rid of the chaff, and producing some good wheat.
Eric, I love David's optimism about this, that it can go to the House, get work done, and again, cutting the chaff, getting to the wheat, and coming back with a nice bipartisan kernel. I guess I'm a little bit more cynical, thinking that when I saw this, it felt like another checkoff list for Senate Republicans. We did the gun bills check, we're doing the social issue check, and then if we really want something passed, we'll work on that next month. Am I just a cynic?
Oh, you're a cynic, Dominic, but you're not alone at this table being a cynic. I was tearing up a bit as I was listening to David wax poetic about the future of this bill and the potential for bipartisan cooperation. This is going nowhere. The House will dispose of this, sending it to a kill committee if it even gets that far. David makes a good point in terms of the well-established constitutional tenet, constitutional principle. It's there for a reason. My question is, what is the specific problem sitting here in year 2015 in Colorado that this particular legislation seeks to redress? And I'm not sure, before you have a solution, you need to articulate what the problem is. And I haven't heard much of an articulation of where exactly this is directed. It strikes me that the intent at least smacks of some mischievousness on the part of some sponsoring legislators. It points to where the epicenter of the Republican Party is these days, particularly in that state Senate Republican caucus. I mean, the names you're talking about identified with this bill are the Kevin Lundbergs and Tim Nevilles and Vicky Marbles, and these are the hard social conservatives of the party. And I do question as to, Cory Gardner, successful Senate candidate in what before had been a blue-leaning state, ran away from these issues, and it strikes me as curious that some Republicans are wanting to run in this direction and talk about these issues instead of finding other ground to fight on.
Penn, will let you be the kind of the cynical tiebreaker here. The bill passed in the Senate 20-15, so some Democrats crossed the aisle.
Sure.
Not a lot of them, but at least 2 of them. Can this be worked on, like Dave was talking about, and become a bipartisan effort in the House?
It can be, but just because you're a cynic doesn't mean you're wrong. It probably won't be. And Eric described this bill as a solution looking for a problem. Well, the problem that it's trying to solve is we want to establish what our caucus stands for, and hopefully we'll be able to take control, keep the Senate and take control of the House, and get the governor's seat next time around because we stand for certain things. But I think the bill misses the point. Whenever you hear about legislation that seeks to reaffirm something, that's code for saying it's already in the law. We're just passing a bill to say it again and maybe sneak a few things in here that we didn't get the first time around. And I think those are the items that David says probably reasonable people could disagree over, that probably don't make sense. And that's what this effort is aimed at. You know, parents can already stop their kids from being vaccinated if they don't want them to. They can opt their kids out of sex education. They can opt their kids out of a variety of school activities. So in many respects, the principles that David said the bill stands for that are good are already in current law. So the bill is really a political declaration, which is fine. I mean, you're allowed to do that in the legislature.
Patty, one of the reports talked about the bill really being about the access to birth control. That a minor couldn't be given access to birth control without the parent's permission. Is that the center of this argument?
No, I mean, I think that Penn really has it. It's just they want to establish a beachhead. The way this has been presented, it's as though Governor Hickenlooper has had every field trip that's come through the state capitol. He's been pouring beer down the kids' throats and making them watch Jenny McCarthy movies and laughing at them. There's just no need for this bill. Everything that a parent could be really legitimately concerned about is already addressed by state law. We don't need it, and we don't need to waste time if we're going to have kumbaya measures in the legislature, and we've got some very important ones to work on. We've got construction defect, where you'd like to see some kind of compromise worked out, and that is going to take everybody's efforts. There's no need to compromise on a bill that we don't need.